Alright, let's today look into pins. How to deal with them and how to try to exploit them sometimes to our benefit. Here's a very common one. This is the other pin. There's two types of pins. This is the more strong one, absolute pin. The knight cannot move because the bishop is pinning it to a king. So you have to always deal with this kind of pins with some other methods. One common method is just to put something between the pinned piece and the king. And it's handy if it's the same value of the pinner. So now we have a lot more options. Unpinning with the queen is not that good, since you definitely don't want to lose the queen to a bishop. And of course, one of the option of to attack the pinner, putting a question for it, and they either have to retreat. We can always keep chasing them, or often keep chasing them, or they can of course trade them off here. But the doubled pawns, as for instance in this example, isn't that big of a deal for black. And the third option, if of course, is that since this pin absolute, but there's very hard time for white to put some extra pressure on that one because the knight can't really access these squares. This knight can't really come add pressure on here, and pushing the pawns is gonna take a long while. Black can just, let's say we would go with this, just sidestep this pin, and now the knight is free to roam. This kind of situation, what you absolutely want to avoid in an absolute pin situation is that we take here and end up in this kind of mess where you have the pinned piece attacked by a pawn. So it's too late to try to break the pin, and here, well, kind of funny example, but you don't have a pawn to attack the pinner anymore. And running is also too late because you're gonna lose a piece. Of course, this would be a very silly move to make here. Here, you can again play now bishop d7, or you can castle away. But yeah, this could happen in a sense that you think that black could think about, doesn't want to lose the bishop to a knight, so he trades here and doesn't think about the consequences. Alright, counter to absolute pins, we have the relative pins. Here is an example of the most harmless of them all, where the piece is pinned to the piece of the same value. So the knight is totally free to move. And let's say we can do whatever we want. We can also move the knight if we want to, but there's no reason to do it here. And this is one of the moments the pinner needs to avoid with when it's a really weak pin. Trying to add pressure on it is going to backfire with the old boomerang tactic. Knight takes here. If you take here, the knight returns. Boom. And you just lost a piece. Here white could still figure that out and try to counterattack this piece. Yeah, notice that here your piece is, the white g5 bishop is attacked twice and only defended once, and it already cost you one piece. So here white could attack the knight, but still black can capture here and white captures here, but it did cost him a pawn. White could get rid of the bishop pair, but that is further simplifications in a position where you're already a pawn down, which is usually not a good idea for the defender. So harmless pins when the piece is the same value. Here is an example with the fianchettoed bishop. Here, this is one of those situations you absolutely want to avoid. There is no way to get rid of this piece that adds pressure on this. You cannot really run away with the piece behind the pin. Just gonna get hit by a b4 here. And now you can take here, but then you're gonna lose the piece. There is a little added thing here that you can do a discovery, but it's not gonna be enough. A piece down for one pawn. And the other point is that in here, the other method of chasing the pinner is going to fail in these situations often. With the white can take there, and take there. Obviously, you cannot capture here with the queen because you don't want to lose the queen. So this is the point you want to get as a on white side, and as a black, you really want to avoid. Notice that here there is no longer bishop left, or the pawns both have moved forward, making this a big hole that can't be ever, the piece that goes there can't be really kicked away. Showing this example, a very similar position, but here, let's say game continues with g3, you can always play this kind of a situation. Again, notice that you cannot chase the bishop because there is also a battery now here. But you can, for instance, at once to preserve the bishop, can here the c5 has not been used yet. You can kick the piece, adding pressure on the pin away. And now you can deal with this about equal position. Of course, there's another way would have been to play bishop e6 here and just trade off this guy. Alright, here another relative pin, but the pinned piece is again queen. So definitely don't want to move the knight. Here you have options. You haven't castled, big factor. So you can always attack the pinner. But then you have to always wait these sacrifice ideas. Here, since you haven't castled, this seems like a really bad version for white, and I doubt the sacrifice really works here. Even though really annoying, black can sometimes drop the knight back here and defend the knight and then try to move the queen away. Or also add maybe here would be to some kind of rook here, and then here white could try to add pressure, but then he gets hit by the knight. But now black is maybe threatening to move the queen and get out of the pin that way by covering this. It's definitely some kind of a compensation here, because it's a really clumsy looking piece configuration for black. Another way to deal with this would, let's say, black would just castle here, and white gets ready to add pressure on the pin. Here the bishop of course is not being able to come back and unpin. But here could also again go for the prevention. White could take here, but then we take with the pawn, and the pawn covers this, so there's no further pressure on the pin. Now also nicely the rook would cover the knight, so we can move the queen around. Or the knight could jump here, more relevant. This is the point, that deal with the pin in this way, or not the pin yet, but avoid the added pressure there. Again, you could probably now start to think about rerouting the knight here, attack the bishop too. Another way to deal with pins would be here. This happens in quite a few openings, and the tactics work here. Is the tactical method. Here black has pinned our knight. We could of course attack the bishop again, or unpin it since the bishop is able to come here, but those are not ideal here. Here we have the nice tactical solutions where the pinned piece becomes the forker, and now king goes here. We just kill this and netted a nice pawn, and also black lost the castling rights. Here is a harmless pin again to a same value of piece of same value. Black could just get out by tactical means. Not that he really needs to, but here he wants to, because he nets something nice. Well, the bishop is attacked, so we have no time to capture the knight. If we take here, you can take here in between instead of capturing here, hitting the queen, so there's no time to grab the rook. And white takes this, we take here, and we netted a pawn. So in these kind of situations, you always have to remember that relative pins, especially, but sometimes even to a queen, if there is a queen in the end of the eating race, relative pins are also always discoveries, the other way around. Here's an example from the botanic system of the semi-Slav. Here black has grabbed a pawn. White says, I want my pawn back, the big center. But black can be really greedy and say, well, you can have the big center, but I'm gonna keep the extra pawn, thank you. Ignoring this major threat because there is this nice tool that, even though it's pinned, knight can't really move away. Now there's no checks either to get out of that way. So you have to use the other tool. And of course there's no time to break the pins with the bishop either because this is gonna come. You have to use the other tool of attacking the pinner, attack something of equal value. And if the bishop drops back, we keep chasing it. Here white can go for this. This is like a very, very double-edged theory. There's thousands of games that have gone this way. White keeps the pin alive, but black has just already netted the piece for it, so it's about equal. Really unbalanced positions though. But yeah, these are heavily discussed, but this kind of a method happens, or is a nice tool to have in your tool bag to get out of pins. Hope you learned something from that. Until next time, might do another edition of this.